Before we hop into today's conversation with one of the best coaches in the sport of running, I want to tell you a quick note that today's podcast is brought to you by Final Surge. And over the next couple of weeks, we will be documenting and chronicling some of the top coaches in the country across professional, collegiate, and high school sports teams. And we're calling this Final Surge Sessions because whether you're a coach, athlete, or entire team, Final Surge is the one platform built specifically for runners. It lets coaches easily deliver workouts, track results, and analyze progress, all in one clean dashboard. It syncs seamlessly with your GPS watch, Garmin, Coros, Apple Watch, Strava, you name it. No more juggling apps to stay organized. Final Surge brings training plans, messaging, and attendance tracking, super cool, into one simple place, perfect for any high school, college, or professional team. If you're a high school or college coach listening, head to finalsurge.com/schools for discounted pricing, up to 35% off. And then for anyone else listening to this, you can get 20% off your first coaching package with code Running Effect 20, all capital Running Effect 20 at checkout. Smarter training starts with smarter tools, and Final Surge is where that begins. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with one of the top coaches in the country.
At least here, like every agreement that we sign in North Carolina is at least a 4-year agreement. So your scholarship is set in stone. The only thing we can do is increase you. We can never decrease you. So there's no one who's running at UNC with the idea of I run 3:55 in the mile versus 3:57. Can I keep my scholarship? It's locked in.
That was one of the many interesting things I learned in today's conversation with Coach Ian Moini of the University of North Carolina, based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I wanted to do an episode for you guys out there that was something that I could share, that you guys could share within your circles, that is a one-stop shop on how to get recruited to run at the next level. And I'm not just talking to you if you're a 3:59 miler and you want to run for a school like North Carolina or Stanford or NAU, but also if you're a 5-minute miler and you're just curious about what the options are out there to continue your running career. I'm also talking to kids who are in unique situations where maybe you got into the sport late and you're peaking as a senior and you're not sure what to do. Ian covers just about every question in the book that I throw at him, and I throw him so many questions, which he handled remarkably well. And for me, this is an episode that I wish I had back in the day. Ian said the same thing. And so I'm thrilled to present you guys with the one-stop shop episode on how to get recruited and everything to know about running at the next level, whether that's D1, D2, D3, NAIA, or even club running, or even, as Ian talks about, finding a group and finding ways to continue your running career in an unorthodox fashion. For some background on Ian before we hop in, he was a stud back in high school. I want to say he was a 4:15 guy. He ultimately ran for the University of North Carolina, and then he spent a long coaching stint at the University of North Carolina, where he's kind of been Coach Milt's right-hand man, helping to form athletes like Ethan Strand and Parker Wolfe, and a big part behind the recruiting powerhouse that North Carolina has become. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Pass this one around, guys. I think this episode has the ability to help a lot of people out, help a lot of parents understand recruiting better, and a whole lot of other things. So I'd greatly appreciate you guys passing it around. Give us a 5-star review if you think we're worthy of it, and hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode like this one. And without further ado, enjoy the one-stop shop conversation on how to get recruited and how to run at the next level with the one and only Coach Ian Moini. Coach Ian Moini, welcome back to the Running Effect podcast. I pray I said that right. I hope I did. It came easy off the tongue. How you doing this afternoon?
I am doing awesome, Dominic. It's great to be here.
First question for you today. Those who are fans of the sport obviously know Parker and Ethan have been tearing up the track and field world. I've talked to them about it, talked to Milt about it on the podcast. Haven't had you on, since a lot of the craziness. What's it been like to be in the driver's seat and witness greatness over the past year?
Yeah, it's just been a lot of fun, and they keep surprising us, I joke, but at the same time, if you saw the way they've gone about their business for the last 12 months, last 24 months, last 4 years, it's been really special, and now they're ready to take the next chapter in their career, and we're just going to be great fans of them going forward. But man, it's been an awesome last even just 3 to 6 weeks with Ethan of like every week getting a little bit better. It's crazy. He's been going since early cross country, and he's still running his best races come the U.S. outdoor meet. And now it's like, okay, like what can you do in Tokyo? And I'm excited to see.
We could do a whole podcast on that, but we'll save that for another time. I think I reached out to you actually in person, I had this idea and then I ended up seeing you in person. So I thought, well, rather than text you, because I was planning on it, I'll bring it up in person, and had this idea to do an episode kind of around recruiting and college recruiting. It's a question I get asked about frequently over emails or DMs. And there's no person I'd rather talk to than you, because I know Milt helps with recruiting, but I think a lot of times you're in the driver's seat there and help out in a big time with it. Obviously, I will admit publicly I have a little bit of a North Carolina bias just because of the athletes I've had on, the relationship with Milt, the relationship even with you that's developed. And so, I wanted to pick someone to break this all down. Intro question for you and for the listener out there. I want to make this a value pack that you guys can listen for 40 minutes and have more information than you'd ever wish to know on this subject.
Yeah.
For you, what was your recruiting journey? And now as a coach, how do you see the recruiting landscape change from that recruiting journey that you had?
Yeah, I mean, when I got recruited, it was the summer of 2016. So I was going into my senior year of high school. And at that point, the NCAA rules were in a place where you couldn't have your first phone call with a coach until after, it was either July 1st or July 15th of your junior year. Up to that point, I remember I had sent emails, I had limited kind of correspondence with coaches back and forth. I went on 2 or 3 unofficial visits, and back then, like, junior days were a really big deal because that was the only time you could actually get on campus and connect. So I did a few of those, but really the process started in early July, and it was some phone calls, it was some more visits, it was 1 or 2 home visits even, and really narrowing down my list to 2 to 3 places that I was most excited about and going to see them. And I actually decided pretty early on that North Carolina was the place that I wanted to be, and it's pretty crazy. Like, now I'm still here 8, 9, 10 years later. But like, for me, it was all about finding a place that aligned with the things that I wanted out of my college experience. And truthfully, over the course of my college experience, those things changed a little bit. But like, now that's something that I feel really strongly about, because I think the more information that you can have about all of this stuff on the front end, the better it's going to prepare you to make the right decision when it comes time. So in terms of how I see the recruiting process now, it's very, very similar. Of like, okay, what does the program, the team, the coaching staff value? What do you value? And then trying to find the best mutual fit with that.
Just to give some context to the listener, what were your times in high school, and at what point did you realize that you could run collegiately?
Yeah, at the end of my junior year, I had run 4:14 in the 1600 and 9:13 in the 3200. I had a little bit of a unique running background because I played ice hockey even in high school, all the way through my junior year. Kind of came onto the sport a little bit later in sophomore year track. So I think I got a little bit more hits than you would now because of the development curve. But like that those are my times, and I always knew I wanted to be a college athlete. But for it to specifically be in cross country and track, that desire and that dream started sometime through indoor track of my junior year, and then just trying to figure out, man, like, what does this process actually look like throughout the rest of that season to finally get it going that summer.
I think a big question a lot of athletes have, specifically athletes who get into the sport later or just have slower progressions, is, do I have to run my fastest times by my junior year, or can I, lengthen it to senior year? What would your opinion and take be on that? And also, if there's nuance to these answers, Ian, like, it matters if North Carolina, but it doesn't if you're just trying to run D3, like, feel free to expand on that as well, because I know it's rarely cut and dry.
Absolutely, and that's probably the best way to put it, is it really depends on the level, but even more than that, it depends on the specific program. I know here at North Carolina, man, if you run really, really fast at your state meet, your senior year of high school, and we're excited about you and you're excited about us, we can make it happen. Like, we can make it happen that late in the process. But truthfully, it usually doesn't get to that place because people are making decision much before then. I know as it kind of trickles down into Division II, Division III junior college, there's going to be increased opportunities to be making those decisions as you get into the spring of your senior year, just like the normal college process that your buddy who doesn't run is going through. But like, at least at the Division I level right now, there seems to be a consistent thread of people taking visits during the spring of their junior year or the fall of their senior year. And I would say the majority of decisions being done by, end of cross country in your senior year. That being said, like, there are outliers to this. And my number one piece of advice is, if you're not satisfied with how you've performed, if you're not satisfied with the level of institution and program that you're currently being recruited at, man, be patient. Bet on yourself. It's going to work itself out. And if you really are committed to this idea of, like, I want to be at this level or I want to be at this place, then see it through. Like, really see it through. And that's risky, but that really is my advice.
A lot of I prepare 0 questions, so any question I ask is off the top of my head. One that I had for you here, obviously you're going to recruit the best kids in the country out of North Carolina. So speaking from that perspective, can you outrun a bad attitude or toxic habits? And by that I mean, if a 359 miler comes to you, you want a 359 high school kid to run for North Carolina. Mm-hmm. But if he has a bad attitude, comes on a visit, doesn't mesh with the team, is that someone you would still recruit? And how important do you think for an athlete out there is it to focus on character and integrity and those other qualities that actually might matter more on paper than your time sometimes?
Yeah, and that's that's the $1 million question, right? But ultimately here at the University of North Carolina, and this is not just like the podcast answer, the reason it's not going to work out, way more than, Coach Milt, myself being like, I don't know about this guy, our guys are going to come to me the minute after the visit and be like, Coach, what the hell? You brought this kid on campus? Like they're not going to let that fly. And for us, it's really important to, this is about individual pursuit, but it's going to be individual pursuit through the lens of being on a great team. And we got to all get along and we got to all be aligned, and no one can be any, bigger than the whole thing. And so for us, that wouldn't fly. I can't speak for anywhere else, but I would say for the majority of places, the guys aren't going to put up with that. The coaches are going to get bothered. So it's important to operate, even if you're running 350 for the mile in high school, it's important to operate with a high level of humility. And there's a balance between humility and confidence, and they can both go hand in hand. But the majority of high-level guys, men and women, boys and girls that we are recruiting, they're awesome people too, and there's a consistent thread to that.
And I'm assuming the underlying thread to that answer there is you might be willing to take the short hit of success, or a program having a 350 miler, but ultimately, if you look long-term, it's going to infiltrate and affect the program to the point where other people aren't running fast, and you almost will then see negative gains. Because I think I've heard this, there's just a study. It's not you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's you're the lowest common denominator of the person you spend the most time with. Yeah. And so if you have someone on the team who has a cancerous attitude, it will rub off on people, even if they're a 350 miler.
I totally agree. And, even fitting with just kind of where things are at today at North Carolina, right? Like these 2 big names, they're leaving, and we can't thank them enough for what they've done. But it started with there being some great individuals, which allowed us to have some really good teams the last 2 or 3 years. But now the most exciting challenge is in front of us of can we become a great program? A great program is built through class by class by class of awesome individuals who compete towards the mission. So we have to all be on the same page on that.
Oh, so many questions that I want to tackle here today. I guess let's approach kind of the fast kid that you would normally recruit. And then if you're a listener and you just want to run at the next level, you're a 450 guy or 5 flat guy, or started running for the first time this year and just want to continue in some sort of team capacity moving forward, we'll cover you in a little bit here, so stay with us. But let's talk about the kid who wants to run D1. What does a standard process look like for that kid when you're recruiting them, from the moment you can email them to the moment that they come on campus and sign with you guys?
Yeah, so the first contact that we can have now is in the middle of June after your sophomore year of high school, which truthfully is insanely early. It really is, but that's when this starts. So, we reached out to some people in the class of 2027 about a month and a half ago over the course of the summer. Coach John, one of our assistants, myself, Coach Milt, Coach Jess, we've just kind of been working through a list of having some initial phone calls. And then really the biggest thing is evaluating cross-country season. Seeing how that linked to kind of sophomore year track times, and over the course of, indoor track, outdoor track, beginning to have some visits to drive towards a decision come the end of outdoors junior year. That being said, just to be totally transparent, in our current girls class of 2026, we don't have anybody committed because we specifically took our time. We have an awesome group that's coming to campus in the fall. And from there, we're going to hopefully build this incredible class, but we're not in a rush. So it's like we're going to start creating some relationships. And even some of these people who are coming to campus in August and September, man, I've been talking to them since June of last year. But now it's finally time to drive towards, an endpoint. But we're not going to do that in a way that's rushed or in a way that doesn't allow people to see their whole process through.
And so generally the process would be you guys talk, you maybe schedule a campus visit. From there, what are the next steps in terms of an athlete, like signing I think there's like national letter of intent and then like actual national signing day. Yeah. What are some of like the key moments an athlete out there could look for in their future?
Yeah, I mean, for us, really like the end of the recruiting process is the official visit. So, hey, there's going to be phone calls. We might even come watch your race. Then you might come for an unofficial visit and hang out, meet the team. But really for us, the end of the process is coming on an official visit. You're going to spend 48 hours with us. I always say it's going to be a lot of fun, but we're going to send you home absolutely exhausted. But like from there, you have all the information you need about where this is going to go. So then it's on you to make a decision. And from there, the national signing period is in November of senior year. You sign that paperwork, it makes it official, and then like we get to go to work together.
Can you explain the technicality? Because I know of a few people who have signed and then they change their mind. There are these like rules around it. What does it mean to actually like sign a national letter of intent?
Dominic, I don't even fully understand, to be honest. But I'm joking. But like at the end of the day, today in college sports with the transfer portal, with just a lot of new changes, it's pretty fluid. But in theory, what that paper means is like, okay, this is a commitment. We're going to give you, whether it's 1% scholarship or 100% scholarship, we're making an investment in you, and you're going to come here for at least a year, hopefully more than that. But that's really what it's meant to be, is at that point, that person is locked in to their commitment, and that person becomes almost like a dead recruit at that point. They're not supposed to be getting contact with other places because they're signed, and then they can move forward with attending that university in the fall of their freshman year of college.
The people that North Carolina recruits are going to be recruited by every other high-level institution. It's the nature of you guys being one of the best programs in the country, and so I can naturally deduct that the Stanfords and Notre Dames and NAUs of the world and everyone else is also recruiting this type of individual. I don't even want to get too specific about North Carolina because I don't want to make this an ad, even though I'm very much supportive of the North Carolina program, but just out of full transparency to the listener. So I'll keep this vague and feel free to weave in how you want to, whatever you want to say here. But how do you in that process, one, get across your messaging of genuinely what makes you better, because you believe it, otherwise you'd be coaching somewhere else, as well as sometimes maybe the program might not be the best fit. And so how do you figure out whether it is a good fit or not a good fit? Because at the end of the day, you care about the athlete, and you don't want them coming to North Carolina if you think a school differently would be a better fit.
Yeah, I think in terms of the messaging and helping them understand who we are, it's as simple as that. Like really doing a great job from the first phone call through successive visits, through finally the official visit, them getting to spend time with Coach Milt, myself, our team, like being 1,000% clear about who we are and who we aren't. And it's really not a sell job. It's like no, this is what we value. This is what we're about day to day. This is the lifestyle and the competitive drive that our program aims to be about. And just from day one, being relentless in the pursuit of that standard and finding people who align with that. And I think this is like a broader philosophy that fits with, okay, you're trying to go to the best schools in the country, or you're trying to go Division III. the number one goal of this should be on the front end, like doing your research on the front end. Okay, like what do I value first? Like as the recruit, what do I value? And then how do I align as best as possible with the places that I'm looking at? And I think sometimes where there's some contention is people don't really do enough work with themselves to think about what they want, because even at the Division I level, even within the ACC, like there can be very, very different experiences in the best way possible of just what your day-to-day college life looks like and what you're going to put large points of emphasis on.
At the end of the day, probably percentage, maybe a higher percentage, I don't know, you'll have to tell me, of athletes you recruit from that moment you can in June up to National Signing Day ultimately won't sign with North Carolina even when you want them to. How crushing is that process? I'm assuming you and Milt have good philosophies around controlling what you can control and being where your feet are and moving on. But at the end of the day, you are investing in humans for a long period of time with the hope and intent of making them Tar Heels and making them successful athletes and people. What's that balance between not getting athletes as well as the elatement and excitement? Elatement can't be a word. Excitement around when an athlete actually signs.
Yeah, and that's, I think, and I'm still very young in this. Like, I want to preface everything I'm saying. Like, the majority of my views on this come from learning from Coach Milt, learning from Mark Rinker, Sue Parks, like awesome mentors. But I think even over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, I've gotten better at like it not absolutely crushing your soul when somebody says no, because man, like you put a lot into this, you build a great relationship, and especially now with the process starting so early, there's just this extended runway to, man, like not just really get to know the kid, but really get to know their parents, get to know their high school coach. Like it's really cool in that way. So when someone's coming, it's like, man, we are family. Like we are going to work together. You choose us, we choose you. It's really special. And then there are, truthfully, more often than not, by the time we get to this decision point, we kind of know where somebody's leaning. So it's not just this out of the blue devastation. But man, there have been a few times where we really thought we were going to get someone and we didn't. And yeah, it hurts. And that person usually hurts us for the next 3 or 4 years, because these people are really good and it's awesome and we root for their success. But it's a balance. And especially when, you have put a lot of time into somebody and they finally make that phone call of like, hey, I'm coming to North Carolina. It's really special. And I always say like, hey, listen, this is, not just a destination, it's an opportunity. But at the same time, getting to the point where you make a decision whether you're going here or you're going there, like that's a big deal too. So celebrate that moment as well.
Without sharing specific names, maybe another podcast on another day. I know at schools like Stanford, when Milt was there, as well as even North Carolina, these are high-level academic institutions, and I think something a lot of high schoolers can forget is that it's college at the end of the day, and they're running in college, and generally you ask the average citizen, what is college? They'll tell you it's education. Mm-hmm. And I think that part can get lost, and regardless of, I've heard a story of a specific individual, I'm sure you have too, who ran times you think would override anyone at Stanford, and they still got deferred and mm-hmm. denied. How important are academics when it comes to running in college? And maybe you can state the truth that it will help you get into a higher ed institution, but if stuff isn't in place to a certain extent, it doesn't matter how fast you run. There's only so much you as the coach can advocate for them to the university.
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable. And I think that goes way further down the academic list than North Carolina too. Like you have to take care of business in the classroom, and that's just as much from the perspective of being admitted as it is from being successful when you arrive, right? Like we're not just trying to get somebody into school. We're trying to make sure that when they get to school, they're able to actually have the tools necessary to be successful. So if you start those habits, when you're 14 years old and that builds through your senior year of high school, then by the time you get to campus, anyone that we're going to be able to get in, because, we have the luxury of having some slots for priority recruits that when they get here too, like they're not too far off the mean and they're really ready to succeed here as well. Because again, talk about alignment, talk about values. If you go somewhere where you're over your head academically, that can be a really stressful experience. I've seen it firsthand, and that should be just as big of a part of this equation in the decision-making process.
What was I going to ask you? Oh, I think a lot of athletes, even myself at times in high school, you can use sport in a beautiful way to get you into schools that normally you couldn't get into just academically, because it does give you that edge. What's your perspective on that? I know North Carolina's, competitive enough that anyone who's really looking at you is probably only looking at you mostly from the running lens, and then the academics is kind of the cherry on top, separates you between other schools. But so maybe we're shifting focus from competitive athlete to normal athlete. What do you think the value is in using the sport to actually get you into a higher education institution that you probably wouldn't be able to get into regularly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge plus of this whole process. It really is, because at all levels, coaches have the ability for some pull to get you into these places. But again, I keep coming back to this, and this is true at North Carolina, and this is true at MIT. Like, at the same time, part of your experience is going to be trying to run at a high level. So really thinking through that lens of how much of that experience should it be. And I think the cool thing with some of these higher level academic institutions is you can have it all a little bit more. So it's, again, really doing your research and work, talking to kids on the team, talking to the coaches of like, okay, what is this really like day to day? And then you can get the benefits of going there too.
What would you instruct an athlete who's maybe on the bubble? So let's say, gosh, this episode's going to be outdated in 2 years because every year, marks are just rewritten. Yeah. But let's say 420, 425 guy can run for some D1 schools and isn't sure whether he wants to go to the school that's going to make him run fast, but he's aware he's probably not going to win national titles, versus the same kid, but maybe got accepted into some of those higher ed institutions. Maybe he got accepted into an Ivy League, and so now he's like, okay, my running's probably not going to be as good. People can debate me on this. Ivy League schools never do as well. Grand Blanks is an anomaly. These are my words, not Ian's. What would you instruct that kid to do in terms of like kind of the middle of the pack? Maybe wants to bet on himself and see if he can be that once in a generational athlete, or use it to go to a higher ed, but his running probably won't get all that much faster.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of your experience? If you want to go and run at a high level and get a world-class education, and you have the opportunity to do it at an Ivy League school, man, that sounds perfect. If you want to go to the other option and be a little bit different, cool. But again, like, where people run into issues, I think, is they don't think about it and they just assume, right? And it's like the answers to these questions are out there if you do your research. So again, like, putting the ball back in your court of like, what do you want? Like, what do you really want out of this? And college is this incredibly unique time in your life, and you didn't go, Dominic, but it's this incredibly unique time in your life where you can pursue exactly what you want and give everything you have towards that. And if it's like a pie chart, the cross sections are the same at every place, but the size of them are going to be different. So like, what do you want?
In regards to that question, parents and coaches can have a massive pool. In your experience recruiting, how much are you asking and trying to seek and understand how much of an athlete's influence to even run and explore the sport is determined by the pressure of a parent or a coach, and how do you kind of weed what they actually want out from them?
Yeah, and I think it goes right back to just building relationships, and not just building relationships with myself, not just building relationships with Coach Milt, but also the guys on our team, the women on our team. That really goes a long way. And I think one conversation, it's easy to say the right thing. Two, it becomes a little more authentic. And by the time you're on campus for a visit, you're just acting exactly who you are day to day. And those answers usually come to a forefront by the intersection of like the things that you say and then the things that our program present towards making sure it's either a good or a bad fit.
How much weight do you put into the different processes of the process? Like, intro phone call versus in-person recruitment visit, and in terms of that in-person recruitment visit, what are key qualities that you and Coach Milt or people on the team, when you talk to them, are looking for to see if it'll be a good match, be a good fit?
Yeah, I think truthfully, early phone calls is just trying to get to know people. But as phone calls progresses, it becomes more clear, like, okay, this is someone that we're really excited about? And then obviously there's the performance side of that too. So assuming the performances are in alignment, we have some good calls, and myself and Coach Mitt really get to know them well. And then like when they come on campus, our guys, we tell them, man, act exactly how you do every single day. Don't do anything different, and see if these guys are really excited to be around you, and they're excited about the way that they operate every day. So I think it kind of comes down to that. And as we go through the course of even 2 days, it becomes more clear, because it's like, oh man, like it wasn't just the Thursday night dinner, it was how they were at the workout on Friday. Oh man, and then it was how they were on Saturday long run. And over the course of 48 hours, we get to know somebody really, really well. And honestly, at the point where we're bringing somebody on official visit, at least here at Carolina, man, like we know them pretty well, and we're really excited about them. And I would say, 95% of the time, we're leaving that visit even more ecstatic. Like, man, how do we make this person a part of our program?
What is one key X factor that you think you and Coach Milt care about when it comes to your program that most people overlook?
Coach Milt, he's probably said this 600 times on your podcasts, but it really is true. Like, what are your goals? What are your goals, and how does that fit with long-term competitive drive and desire? And there's a difference between, I want to run 4:04 in the mile or 4:44 in the mile by getting 7th at the running lane meet, or like, no, like I want to win races. I want to compete. I don't just look out at my competition. I look up at the next level that I'm always trying to pursue. And for us, that is a consistent theme of the people that we've gotten really excited about over the last few years. And truthfully, those are the people that have been the most successful with us.
From your perspective, you'll have to tell me how old you were. You were either transitioning, beginning to out of the program, or you were in your first year or two. Ethan Strand, Parker Wolfe recruiting stories.
Yeah, well, that was when they committed, I was still on the team. Okay. And then I was, because again, they committed so early. Then I was gone working at Eastern Michigan for a little bit. And then I showed up back when they were basically starting their freshman year. So my first day working at UNC was also their first day going to school at UNC. So I don't have a ton of recruiting stories, but the consistent theme with them as you talk to them on the back end is, man, they got just so excited about the idea of a long-term plan with Coach Milt. And that's not just a long-term plan with their own running, but with where our team was in the infancy, like of really building something. And now the fact that we're even having this conversation means that it worked at least a little bit. And now it's about making it kind of go into the future.
There are some athletes who are really good at track, suck at cross country. There are some athletes who are amazing at cross country, suck at track. Where do you fall in terms of caring about that, and how do you evaluate, why that is?
Yeah, I mean, and that really depends. Like if you're talking about, okay, this junior girl is running really more like 400s and 800s and just coming at it from that side, and cross country is just an opportunity to get better for indoors. Or it's like, no, like legitimately somehow you're running a really high level on the cross country course, but that's just not replicating to track season. For us, we want to see people who can finish, who have high level of leg speed, and often over the course of a 4-year college career, the people that are excelling maybe more in track and the middle distance events, they can get strong enough to run really, really good cross country. So that's how I'd answer that question. But I think there's a lot more nuance to it than just like one way or the other.
It's funny because asking that question reminded me of the question I forgot that I wanted to ask you, which was how do you evaluate an athlete who is undertrained or just their training in general, right? Because you might have a guy who runs 4:05, but you look at his training schedule and you think, oh my gosh, we're sitting in a gold mine, versus a kid who you're like, you're nearly doing everything right. And so I can assume that even if I was coaching you in high school, you wouldn't run too much faster. Where does that come into play in terms of when evaluating an athlete? And what would you say to an athlete out there who doesn't feel like they have the best training setup and they want to articulate that to a college coach?
Yeah, and I think being able, part one, like the end, just on these calls and even in initial emails, being able to articulate just what your day-to-day training setup looks like, what you're doing, and if that is a big part of your story, being able to say that, because that can be a huge selling point to some people. But I would say in terms of, okay, you're training really hard or you're not training that hard at all, at the end of the day, we're trying to evaluate, can you get better in college? Not like, oh, are you good in high school, but can you get better in college? And where I stand today, that has to do way more with mentality and desire than it does with what you're actually doing day to day from a mileage perspective or stuff like that. Like, can you really create momentum? And I would say the thing we're looking at through that lens is, okay, You're running 65 miles a week. Awesome. Like that's a moderate amount. But in that 65 miles a week, are you consistently competing at a high level? If you're doing that, man, then you're going to get a lot better. The same thing if you're running lower volume, but you're all over the place. Okay, like I'm not convinced that just if you start running more mileage, that means you're automatically going to get better. We want to see people being consistently good at the level they've been at all season. And if you can do that, then we'll be able to project out that once you get to the next level, you're going to be able to consistently get better because you allow yourself on race day.
Trying to just not rush through, but ask you as many questions as I can to pack this episode. One of them that I think is a question I wouldn't have even known what this term was a year ago. Roster cuts.
Yep.
How do they affect programs, and what should a student athlete in high school be aware of when it comes to this term?
Yeah, so they only affect schools that are opting into the NCAA house settlement. So that means that there's going to be revenue sharing that truthfully is not really going to come to cross country and track, but now athletic departments are going to be able to share $20 or $21 million with majority like football, basketball, and women's basketball players. Roster cuts are an unfortunate kind of byproduct of that, where now we do have to have 17 in cross country, 45 for track. It's going to be a little bit less in certain conferences. More than anything, I think for people coming up right now, it's just having an awareness of it, having an awareness that like, man, there's going to be less opportunities at the top level to go around, but like not everywhere is operating under those restrictions. So it's again finding the right fit for you and like where you can really be successful.
What questions should each athlete ask themselves to figure out whether a program is good for them, whether they should run in college or not? You're big on in this conversation, asking yourself, what do you want? What are your goals? So what are questions athletes can ask themselves to figure out those other questions?
Yeah, I think step one, like figuring out what you want, the biggest question is like, what do I want my college experience to look like? Do I want to be at a place where, man, like the team is really operating at a high level that, between high level school and high level running, these are the priorities. It doesn't leave a whole lot of space for anything else. And I'm going to have this incredible like social experience through working through that with my teammates. There's also places where, man, like you can have an internship while you're in school, be doing extended lab and coursework, be running, have a great experience. And then that's all good too, but it's kind of through that lens and through that question, like, what do I want my day-to-day experience to look like? And what do I want that balance to look like just within all the different things that you can kind of get yourself into while you're in college? I think that's the number one most important thing. And then number two is like, what am I looking for in a coach? Like what kind of person do I want to be with every day? What kind of training philosophy am I looking to align with? What level do I want to be at? Like ultimately, because again, like I think it's great to come and run at North Carolina, but it's not an extremely rewarding experience if you're not meant to be at this level and you can't be a meaningful part of things. Coach Milt talks about it all the time, but the two best ways to have a life-changing college experience, especially as a student athlete, is number one, to have a great relationship with your teammates and your coach. So for me, that means having a small and intimate environment. And then that fits into being a meaningful contributor. So man, like being in the lineup at the conference meet in the cross country championships, being able to go potentially score a point in conference of track and maybe make nationals, and there be a step ladder towards, okay, if I get better from freshman year to sophomore year, junior year to senior year, I can really compete and have success. That's not necessarily the case for everyone, but I think for people looking at it through the running lens, that should be really, really important. And that takes some just real honesty with yourself about where you are and where you're not.
What do you think is the biggest misconception people have when it comes to recruiting and running at the next level?
Yeah, and I actually thought about this before the conversation. I think the biggest misconception, at least in the Division I level, and I already really hit on this a few times, is that all the programs are exactly the same and everyone operates the exact same way day to day as a college athlete. Again, even within Division I, there's just a variety of experiences that you can really have, and that is awesome because it means there's going to be a right place for you to fit in, and definitely within all the levels too.
Anything else in terms of Division I recruiting things that people should know who are slowly getting to that level before we move on?
I think just, don't be afraid to be annoying, right? Like send emails, get your name out there, be concise and to the point about who you are, what you do, and, why you're excited about the place. And if you do that consistently over time and continue to get better, people are going to be excited about you and there's going to be opportunities. And I think the last thing with all of this, and it's really important to preface, like when you're getting super, super philosophical about alignment and values, is like, it's not lost on me that college is really, really expensive. Like it's really expensive and there's a cost component to it too. So it's, man, within the confines of being able to make it affordable for yourself and your family, finding a great fit. And that's the unfortunate part of all of this is like the cost of college has never been higher, and it's just, it can be hard at times.
And if you really don't want to go start a podcast and pray it's successful. No, I definitely think that's a good component, because even for me, I was raised and in a household that was, you're going to have to pay for your own college. And for me early on, I thought that would come through running, actually. Yeah. To that point, though, I want to ask you, if you're in middle school or a freshman in high school, do you think it's a worthy goal to run and most of your days be motivated by the thought of going Division I? Or do you see the athletes who truly thrive and succeed, that's a byproduct of chasing excellence, and that excellence is sometimes D1 and sometimes it isn't?
I genuinely believe that it is the byproduct of chasing big goals, getting better, like people in your state that are better than you, working your way through the state level to the national level. Like at the end of the day, that's how you're going to be successful in college, but that is 100% applicable to actually making progress in high school. And we even, back to like kind of that scholarship and cost piece, man, I have never seen it go well where someone's like, I'm going to go to this school and I'm going to run my way into more scholarship and I'm going to run for that scholarship. Like that doesn't work. Like that doesn't work. I want to be very open about saying that. Like I have yet to see a successful situation through that lens. Man, you got to be motivated for the right reasons and be excited about getting better, competition, and just continuing to push yourself to find out, like, how good can I truly be?
Do you think the pressure is sustainable of having college paid for by running?
In what regard?
People who view running as being able to pay for college, I think it could be incredibly weighty to then you put so much pressure on your performance, because as much as you love a kid, Ian, if they're not performing well for you guys for multiple years, I don't know this, but I'm guessing scholarship conversation will come up. That's a ton of pressure. Do you think that's a sustainable thing to bet on for an athlete?
Yeah, I don't think it's a sustainable thing to bet on, but the awesome thing at most levels, at least in Division I, is you sign 4-year agreements, so your scholarship is guaranteed your entire career. At least here, like every agreement that we sign in North Carolina is at least a 4-year agreement, so your scholarship is set in stone. The only thing we can do is increase you. We can never decrease you. So there's no one who's running at UNC with the idea of, I run 3:55 in the mile versus 3:57, can I keep my scholarship? It's locked in. And like back to your original question, no, nobody's going to do well in that setting, in that situation. So I think we try to do our work on the front end to make sure we're taking care of people.
Moving on to kind of the more average athlete. Let's talk to an athlete who broke 5 minutes in the mile for the first time, and they love running, and they kind of want to do it at the next level. What do you think are the natural questions they should explore? And what are some of the paths and avenues that you know of that could be applicable for that athlete?
Yeah, I think there's actually a few different, and probably even a few I'm not going to mention, where, running at a junior college, running Division III, even running some Division II schools and NAIA schools. So it's figuring out like, okay, what universities am I interested in? Truthfully looking at maybe some smaller places, and then seeing what their programs look like, emailing coaches, looking on TFERS of like the results of the athletes and within the program. And then the last thing I'll say, and this is 1000% the truth, especially at these national universities, University of North Carolina, anywhere, like the club running team is this really cool thing. Like the club team at UNC meets outside my office every single day at 5 p.m. and there is like literally 5 days a week, 150 people. People. They go for runs. There's a few options. Like one group will go for a run, one group will go for a workout in our gravel loop. They run races. It can be a really rewarding experience. It's an incredible social group because it's a bunch of people like us who are nerds who all love the same thing. And I don't think people look through that lens enough of, man, like the experience of being on the North Carolina club running team, it probably mirrors some college running that's actually in the NCAA, which is really, really cool.
Not to bring our shifting back, but is there such a thing as tryouts for UNC? Like, for instance, if a kid on the club team, 415 guy, wasn't fast enough to be recruited, goes the club route, do you have conversations with kids ever of like, okay, you're not fast enough now, but here's the path?
Yeah, we would definitely have open and honest conversation. I think for that, we haven't had that situation happen yet where someone actually was on the team. But if someone ran fast enough in a situation that was like they can be again successful at our level, then we definitely would make it happen.
From your perspective, and I know might have some personal bias or just off the cuff response, what is generally, from your experience, the kind of best next steps that an athlete who isn't at the D1 level, again, kind of that 5-minute mile or whatever that might look like, should take if they want to continue their running career?
Yeah, I think just figuring out if they really want to be on a structured college team or go club route. And then honestly, this is coming up more and more recently, even offline. Me and you were talking about you coaching somebody to run a high level marathon. Like that is a very real option too, of like, finding 2 or 3 friends, connecting a few days a week and continuing to train to pursue whatever your goals are in the sport, because the sport is way bigger than just, the NCAA Division I cross country meet, men and women. Like there's so many levels to this and there's so many opportunities, which definitely makes it special.
For an athlete out there who maybe had dreams of going D1, but for whatever reason, injury, sickness, just not progressing how they may have liked to, isn't in a position to do so, what advice would you give them in terms of reframing the sport? Maybe they don't want to retire and hang up the shoes, but they are coming to terms with, 3 years ago I wanted to run D1 and now I'm only in a position where I can run for a club team. This is something I actually am very curious to get your take on, because I actually see it quite frequently in my circles, a kind of silent mourning of athletes who love the high school team experience, loved competing to make, state meets. That's an exhilarating process. Right. I was a part of that, and then they leave it. I've experienced that to extents. What would you say to them?
I would say continue to connect with people who, if again, this is step one, like, are you actually still interested in running and competing? Like, how do you create that in the most social setting possible, which might mean actually being on a college team, might mean club, might mean, again, like having a small little training group, but there is a way for it to be similar. Honestly, like, I don't know if anything is as fun as being on your high school team trying to make the state meet, like even at the college level, but like being able to do this in a social setting and get everything you want out of it is still possible. It's just going to take some work to find it.
Whether it's D1 or one of these kids who just wants to run at the next level, emailing a D3 or NAIA school, how much is like proper communication and just good structure email matter in terms of getting a response, getting a look at? I'm sure you see emails that are just like, you either use ChatGPT or you spent an hour telling me intimate details about everything, versus a clean, polished, you clearly were taught well by your parents.
Yeah, it really goes a long way, honestly. Like, truthfully, I probably get 1 email a week that is, to Coach Hazori at Wake Forest. And I'm like, you couldn't have even read the email to send it to me. But all jokes aside, like, at the end of the day, how you present yourself is everything. So if you can be professional, show that you put a little bit of thought and just kind of insight into what you want to portray in the message, then it gets out and it's like, okay, this is easy to digest, and now this is a relationship that I actually want to start.
Regardless of the goals at the next level, whether D1 or just, pursuing it at a D3 NAIA club level, what would you say to an athlete freshman, sophomore year in terms of what their mindset should be? Because I think just the unfortunate reality of the sport is like, we have made kids care and put so much pressure on themselves at such a young age. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of the sport that I think a lot of them can lose sight of why they're running and how to actually thoughtfully progress for the right reason. What would you say to a freshman out there in terms of how they should approach their high school years?
Yeah, well, one, it's like, man, it's some of the most rewarding running you can have, and really the most rewarding sports experience you can have, in my opinion. But then how that fits in with just the day-to-day is like, 1, having fun with your teammates, connecting with your coaches, but 2, like, every day reminding yourself that getting to race is the best thing that we do. Like, that is the best thing you do, It's an opportunity to push yourself. It's not any different than doing a hard workout. And it's just like, let's go push ourselves and see how far we can get. And if you do that every time out, like, you're going to get better. I can't promise that you're going to run, 4:35 as a girl or 3:59 as a guy, but like, I can promise you're going to get better. And it's just going to be really rewarding. And if you do that and have high level goals that come with it too, then the decisions that you need to make to be successful become obvious. It's not, oh, I make these decisions and then I'm going to be really good. It's like, no, what do I want? And what decisions do I need to make to do that? That was a little confusing, but that's really, really important in my opinion.
As we start to wrap up here, I think a valuable thing to cover, because a lot of parents listen to the podcast, what would you say to a parent listening? What are ways that they can go about and support their kid in the best way possible in their dreams and goals?
I think part one is knowing that there's a lot of great opportunities out there. This is not just about, can I go to Stanford or bust? Can I go Division I or bust? Like, there are a ton of great opportunities out there. And then with that, allowing your kid to drive the process. I can't tell you how many emails I also get from parents, and it's like, you're not helping your child put themselves out there. Part of this process is great for just like long-term growth and growing up, because man, as a 16-year-old, you got to get on the phone with a college coach and you have to just be able to have a conversation, not just like asking questions from me, but like, can they ask questions back and really like have a dialogue? And for some people, that's the first time in their life they're going to do that with a person that they don't know at all, right? So I think letting your kid drive the process, and then again, as the process goes and goes, not putting your desires of a college experience onto your kid, letting them drive that, and helping them understand like what they really want again.
Ian, final question for you today. Floor is yours. Anything we haven't covered that you want to cover? Any final takeaway messages? Where should people go from here, besides if you're a 3:59 miler or 4:35 girl, check out UNC?
Hey, like, no, I think it just fits with what I just said. Like, this can be a really, really special and transformational experience, and it's all about finding the right fit. And at the same time, man, like, I want to say this too. Just going to college and being a normal college student is also really cool, and it can be just as fun. So no pressure, you know what I mean? Like, no pressure. It's a win-win, and find where you want to be and what you want, and then do everything in your power to go get it.
Coach Ian Moini, ladies and gentlemen. Ian, thank you so much for all of the insights. Really proud of this one, because I think it's an episode that I myself could have used way back in the day as a freshman, sophomore, at different points in my career, depending on what I was thinking. So thanks for taking time out of your wildly busy life between commuting to Denver and Chapel Hill for, Ethan's workouts and the season kicking off this week, and in recruiting, to take time and distill all this wisdom into a podcast episode. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. It was awesome doing this. I would have needed it too, so it was good.